I totally got that I was an obnoxiously privileged kid.
Hello and welcome to the Roast of Your Teenage Self podcast. I am your host, your roast-coming queen, a girl who took the SAT 2 times and got the exact same score, Alise Morales. And with us today, guys, we have such an exciting guest. I would say an icon of my teen years. He's the host of the Wild Ride podcast. You might know him from a show called Jackass. But before all of that, he was a graduate of the American School in London. Please welcome Steve-O.
Thank you.
I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. I mentioned it as we were coming in, but when I was a teenager, I was a big fan of Jackass, and I had Wild Boys, the DVD box set. So you're kind of like
nice
goals guest as far as this podcast goes.
Well, I appreciate that.
I did a little like Wikipedia of you before we started, and it seems like prior to high school, you moved around a ton. So could you just kind of take us through some of that?
Sure. I was born in England, Wimbledon to be precise. At the age of 6 months, my family moved to Brazil, and I spoke my first words in Portuguese, living in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Wow.
I think I was 2 when we moved to Caracas, Venezuela, and I spoke fluent Spanish in nursery school. And then moved to America when I was 4 years old. I went to Connecticut, Darien, and so when you get down to it, I spoke 3 languages by the age of like 3 or 4, and I forgot 2 of those languages by the age of 5.
So do you retain any? Do you have any of them now apart from English?
I was told that I spoke Portuguese in my sleep at a summer camp that I went to when I was 11 years old. And I thought that was pretty cool. But overall, no, I have no retention whatsoever.
So what prompted all of the moving? Like, was it just one parent's job or like... How did you end up going from place to place?
My dad worked for international divisions of multinational companies. When we moved to Brazil, it was because Dad got the job of president of Pepsi-Cola in all of Brazil.
Oh, wow.
And when we moved to Caracas, Venezuela, it was because Dad was promoted to president of Pepsi-Cola in Central America, and then some larger portion of Pepsi-Cola. It was still Pepsi when we moved to Connecticut. When I was 6, we moved to Miami, and that was when Dad became a big tobacco CEO. He worked for R.J. Reynolds Tobacco, and this was, of course, in the early 80s. By 1983, it was learned that cigarettes were actually bad for you. And Dad worked for Big Tobacco, and at that point, the tobacco companies sort of, sensing that their world was crumbling around them, became nervous and bought up food companies. R.J. Reynolds Tobacco merged with Nabisco. And Dad became the president of Nabisco in like the whole world, I think.
Okay, so are you aware that this is a big deal at the time? Are you just like, no, everybody's dad is the president of Nabisco? Or are you like, do you get that you're kind of wheeling and dealing in the upper levels of society here?
I totally got that I was an obnoxiously privileged kid. And as I grew older, my dad became increasingly successful. My mom's alcoholism became more chronic. Mm-hmm. The house got bigger. My sister bailed out. The family got smaller, and Dad was never home anyway because he was always flying around the world, doing his business stuff. So it was just me and my mom. And mom's alcoholism got so crazy that it was just like going to school became optional. Like,
Yeah. So it's like you're seeing this kind of economic success that your dad's having, but it's not translating to like happiness or success in any way in your like
not at
home
all.
life at all.
Oh God, no, God, no. And I was very self-conscious about it. I was very uncomfortable having any kids from school come over to see this large house that we lived in. I just was really kind of ashamed of it.
I actually wanted to take a minute to pull up your first photo. So we've got this one of you. You're looking very young, very sweet but mischievous is the vibe that I'm getting here.
I was 13 years old in that picture. I've posted that picture to my social media multiple times, and every time that my caption for the photo is, "This was before any goo came out," which to me is pretty fascinating because that seems like a kid that would be blowing a load. But I was firing blanks.
So are you trying at this point, or like?
Oh, yeah, I had figured out the concept of bringing myself to climax, and nothing was actually being shot out.
See, that's a thing that I hear. It's funny to hear about that from boys because it's kind of like the opposite way for girls. Like boys get the information and then they can't act on it for a little while. Girls can kind of act on it forever, but they have to get the information first about like how you even do it.
Right. That photo was actually taken when I lived in Toronto.
Okay.
In Canada. And we had this bathroom that opened out to the pool, and the idea was, you come in and the shower had a faucet that was like just closer to the ground to rinse off your feet. I didn't know. I just knew that when I crawled into that faucet and put my wiener under the water, that it really like something pretty cool happened.
Yeah.
And that was my introduction to masturbation.
Today's episode of the Roast of Your Teenage Self podcast is brought to you by Purple. Throw some bedding on a bunch of different mattresses, and sure, they all look alike. The same goes for pillows, but peel away the layers and look at what's inside, which in many ways is what we do on this podcast every single day, or every Tuesday. You get what I mean. You'll see that all pillows and mattresses aren't created equal, and that's what makes every Purple pillow and mattress unlike anything you've ever slept on. And I've slept on some weird stuff. Okay, college. We don't get into really college on this podcast, but college was a whole other thing. The Purple Grid sets Purple mattresses apart from every other mattress. It's a patented comfort technology that instantly adapts to your body's natural shape and sleep style. I actually received a little sample of the Purple Grid, which I use as a stress reliever. Okay, I'm squeezing on that thing, and it feels good, and you can actually have that feeling all over your body. With over 1,800 open air channels designed to neutralize body heat, Purple provides a cooling effect other mattresses can't replicate. Should I go into the fact that I'm a hot and sweaty sleeper again? Should I keep talking about the fact that my fiance is like a heater that sleeps next to me and is on all the time? And it's the reason why I wake up sweaty. Is this something you want to hear about? Because it's true. But not with Purple, because Purple's cutting-edge technology doesn't stop at the mattresses. Every Purple pillow is engineered with the Grid for total head and neck support and absolute airflow, so you're always on the cool side of the pillow. Purple's proprietary technology has been innovating comfort for over 15 years, so in a way, Purple is a teenager as well. And, I can really see all of these beautiful things coming together with my gorgeous Purple pillow. It's keeping me cool. It's keeping me sane. It's keeping me less
sweaty. How much sweat should I talk about in this ad? I'm just going to move on. You can try every Purple product risk-free with free shipping and returns. And Purple has financing available as low as 0% APR for qualified customers. So if you want to pay on a monthly schedule, times are tough, things are crazy right now, you can still get a good night's sleep, and babe, don't you deserve it? Experience the Purple Grid and you'll sleep like never before. Go to purple.com/teenself10 and use promo code TeenSelf10 for a limited time, and you'll get 10% off any order of $200 or more. That's purple.com/teenself10, promo code TeenSelf10 for 10% off any order of $200 or more. Terms apply.
In moving from school to school and stuff, did you develop like a strategy for how you were gonna make friends at the new school? What what was your day one of a new school? Teen Steve-O walks in. What's your first move?
I was just this ball of energy, this just super uncomfortable, socially just incompetent attention whore kid, and I wanted so much to win the approval of my peers and to impress them and to, I had to be liked, and everything that I did brought about the entirely opposite results. I just tried so too hard. I had a super uncomfortable childhood. I just really did not do well socially, and where the family moved so often, you would think of that as a traumatic thing. In my case, the every time my parents told me, hey, we're going to move again, I was thrilled to hear it, because I had created just a terrible situation for me in every school. And every time that I found out we were going to move, I thought, yes, I get a whole new chance, a whole clean, fresh start. And this time I'm going to be cool. I was so determined to get it right each time. And every time, there I was. Everywhere I went, there I was.
And was it just the trying that stopped you? It was kind of that catch-22 of the least cool thing you can do is try to be cool type of a deal?
I just couldn't relax. I tried so hard, and it was just you kook, I couldn't help but be a kook, I had this one story, and I know I've told it before, but it's just it characterizes what I was in fifth grade. One of my final baby teeth. It was one of my last ones, and it was just barely felt like it was loose. And I knew already from that time, because I was big on getting money from the tooth fairy or whatever, that I wanted to rip it out. And if I ripped it out prematurely, that there would be a lot of blood. So I went into my Spanish class that day with this plan. And I remember sitting next to the prettiest girl in the class, which under normal circumstances I just would never have done. And and just with this crazy confidence, I sat right next to her and I told her, I don't have to be in class today. I can leave whenever I want, and she kind of looked at me like I was a kook and you're weird, what the fuck are you talking about? And then when the class started, I just reached in and I just grabbed this tooth and just super violently ripped it out.
Oh my God.
And sure enough, there was tons of blood, and I raised my hand said to the teacher, I have to go to the nurse. And the teacher could just see all this blood in my mouth. And the teacher said, go to the nurse. And I stood up proudly, turned to the girl and said, I told you so. And I just marched out of the class and paraded around the school through the hallway. And like I felt so cool when in fact
I mean, was she impressed? Did it work?
No. Like
Not at all.
that's what I was like as a kid, you know. And I remember it was like, you know, oh, everyone get around, check it out, this is gonna be awesome. And I would take I remember, I don't know, like I know I did it one time in the cafeteria. I got all the kids to gather around and I unscrewed a salt shaker and just like consumed all this. I just drank all the salt out of it. Which like is not good for you. The kids were not impressed, and my parents, as usual, got a call. Had, you know, like I was in trouble, and that's the kind of thing I would try to do to win influence and affection. You know.
Well, it's interesting to me because it didn't work on your peers at the time, but right. I will say that when I was watching and I was a teenager, we were all extremely impressed and we thought it was very cool. So it worked eventually.
Thank you. Yeah, the everything that made my childhood terribly uncomfortable and traumatic did end up working out to some degree. So
I think we actually have another picture where it looks like you're jumping off of a roof. There we go. Yeah. So how far were your antics going in high school? Were you like reaching the same level as you eventually would on the show? Or were you just dipping your toe in? I mean, clearly here you're jumping off of a roof. So
yeah, that one in this picture, I'm 19 years old. This was before Eminem was a thing, and I had my hair bleached.
You did it first. You heard it here first, guys.
Right. What's interesting about that picture is that my mom took it, which is really cool. You know, like,
yeah.
It's like, yeah, and it's her house. Like, yeah, jump off the house. Like, and I'm making it that it's so rad to me that the swimming pool isn't even in the frame because it was like so far away. But yeah, I had to jump pretty far to make it to the pool, which I did. I had at this point already dropped out of the University of Miami with no plan but to try to become a famous, crazy stuntman. And there was no precedent. It was not like it did not seem like a winning plan at the time. Everybody I professed this goal to just felt bad for me.
Talk about that journey. Like, how did you get to, I want to be a professional stuntman, or even conceiving of doing that? How did you get into doing stunts yourself? Like, did you model that off anyone, or was it just you and buddies fucking around?
You know, like growing up from being a little kid, everything was always just like, I was uncomfortable in my skin and I would immerse myself in like some sort of an identity, which made me feel like, you know, something I could cloak myself in. And at first it was Little League Baseball, you know, Little League sports. And I would go around on days when I did not have a game and I would be wearing my Little League uniform, like going to the movies or something, because that made me a baseball player. And I felt like, you know, like that's just what a kook I was. You know, there was a picture when I was 9 years old for my Canadian citizenship. I'm a triple national because mom was born in Canada, dad was born in the States, and I was born in England. Yeah, I had to get a picture taken for my Canadian citizenship card, and that means like going to like the passport office, whatever, taking the photo. And I felt compelled to be wearing full football uniform, shoulder pads, the whole deal, like in my Canadian citizenship card. There was no fucking reason for me to be wearing my full football uniform with full pads in a passport photo, but that's the kind of kid I was, and it made me feel like I don't know, I just needed that help, you know, like to amount to more. And I always had a uniform like that. And it went from Little League sports to heavy metal music. I was like, oh yeah, with my jean jacket and my little mullet, you know, like when I met Motley Crue in Toronto, because I called every hotel in the Yellow Pages asking for a room by the name of their manager. And so the heavy metal, you know, identity, like then it turned into skateboarding, you know, and I really, and the skateboarding was the biggest one because it led me to the video camera. What really made me fall in love with it was that with the video camera, being such an attention whore, I could document what I was doing and edit out the failures, And so at the end of the day, I could like put together a presentation of nothing but wins, And that was something I really clung on to, and lived in London, England, and went to the American school, and like all the skaters that moved away or quit skating, and so I just gave up skateboarding for drugs, deliberately. I was like, my new identity is going to be a pothead, druggie.
Yeah, that was another thing I wanted to ask you about, is like, when did weed, alcohol, any of that stuff come into your life? Because you're sober now, but at that time,
it was so sadly deliberate, where I dropped the identity of skateboarder, and just like that, now I'm gonna be a druggie. And less than I wanted to experience like being high, taking drugs. I just wanted to have that identity. That was when I was 16, the beginning of my junior year of high school. And I just went off the deep end. The first day I tried pot, then it was an everyday thing from that point. And then I started taking acid, and I was just, and my grades just plummeted. I got into the University of Miami on early acceptance, which was the only way I got in. And within 2 weeks of class starting, my freshman year at the University of Miami, I had my room raided. They confiscated a bunch of weed and alcohol and everything. They placed me on final disciplinary probation within 2 weeks of class starting upon my arrival. And dude, and I failed so fucking bad. I had this girlfriend. She was just observing me not going to class. I just couldn't bring myself to go to class. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, what the fuck are you doing here? And I was just like, I don't know, like,
you're supposed to go to college, so I came. Like,
right. And this is a story that I really haven't told, she dumped me, citing that she was looking into her future. It couldn't see me in it, because she was observing how I was approaching college, and she determined I was going to be a loser, and she wanted to have things. And so it was over. And I was just truly heartbroken. I was just like, oh my God. And right around that time, I got kicked out of the dorms. It wasn't final probation anymore. They're like, no, you're out.
What was the were you just caught partying again, or?
It was a good one. It was a good one. Like, and there's footage of it too. I lived in a 12-story dormitory, which had a radio tower on it. And, like right at the top of the building in the stairwell, I broke out the window and then climbed. It was like the stairwell was separated by a balcony. I broke out the window and climbed out over the gap onto the roof. And then I was climbing up the radio tower, and some people saw me on the ground. There's someone climbing up the fucking radio tower on the 12, and these cops came onto the roof, and that was it for me. I was at that point, like, I had already been dumped at that point. And I was like, fuck it, I'm not that good at skateboarding. I love making videos. I'm going to be fucking wild. And I wanted it to be known that I was doing like stunts that I could die doing. I was climbing off the 12th floor balcony of that building, just dangling by my hands, like swinging out over 12 stories, just holding the railing. And then I would swing in and let go and land on the 11th floor balcony. It was like fucked up stuff like that. And I was drunk as hell doing it. I did it on acid. For my university career, I never once went to the library except to rappel off of it.
Yeah, I mean, that checks out.
Yeah, and I wanted this girl to be worried about me, thinking oh, he's gonna die, because she broke my heart. And then as I was doing all this stuff, I was like, dude, I'm a stunt man, And,
have you been heartbroken before, prior to that? So that was like your first big
That was
heartbreak.
It was my first like serious heartbreak, and like I was such a fucking creep, man. I ended up dropping out of school, even though I would come back and live on campus as a homeless person for the next 3 years. And I was on this mission, like, to make stunt videos with a home video camera. And I befriended the University of Miami dive team. It was like an Olympic factory, you know, and I had the number 1, number 2, and number 3 NCAA platform divers, all who shared an apartment in the athletic apartments. And they let me sleep on their floor and like took me under their wing and actually trained me to do like, you know, acrobatics, like walk downstairs and upstairs on my hands and do like, you know, backflips, like really pretty, you know, well. And I took that and I started setting myself on fire and doing simultaneous fire breathing backflips, like just kind of putting my own twist on everything. And I was like, man, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be like a rad stuntman. And every year I would take the footage I shot. This went on for years, by the way, too. Like, this went on into, like, 1998, and I dropped out in 93. Every year, I put together a reel of the stunt footage, the best of, for that year, and mailed it to that girl.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, at her mom's house.
I'm literally just imagining her, like, later turning on TV and seeing you and being like, what the hell is any of this?
I'm like blushing. I'm embarrassed to admit this. Like, what if fucking, and she would watch the videos and respond and be like, yeah, that's really cool, you know, like, like, yeah, I can feel my face like is hot and red.
Well, no, that's good. That's actually the point of this show.
Yeah.
That's so funny. And what were you hoping? You said you were hoping that she would see what you were doing and think that you were in danger, but were you also like, maybe she'll think it's cool?
I mean, it was just about like it was the same exact fucking thing as thinking that ripping my tooth out would be perceived as cool.
Okay, yes.
Like, yes, I thought it was cool, but it wasn't perceived that way, you know?
You've talked a lot about like feeling out of place, out of sorts, socially, all of this stuff. Did you have a core crew? Like once you were at the American school and stuff like that, did you have a group of buds or were you just kind of floating between people?
Yeah, I mean, I was able to like just sort of immerse myself in whatever my identity was at the time. Like there was a group of skaters and you know, skateboarding was actually the probably the best time for me because it was just like a healthy thing, you know? Like I honestly believe that everything that, you know, they say you learn everything you need to know in kindergarten and I say you learn it from skateboarding. Mm-hmm. You know, like I started skateboarding in 1985, like within minutes of walking out of the movie theater, having seen Back to the Future Part 1. And I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing. And because of Back to the Future Part 1, like that Christmas of 1985, pretty much every kid in the world had a skateboard under the tree. And in short order, 100% of those kids realized, wow, skateboarding is incredibly difficult. And it fucking hurts because like you fall down, you know?
I wanted to get into skateboarding so bad because, again, I'm like watching Jackass. I'm like involved in the culture of like punk, pop punk, emo music. I'm like, I want to get into this. And then I could not handle the mental block of falling down.
You know, skateboarding served to weed out, to isolate kids who had it in them to persevere, to sacrifice, to like fall down and get up, to go against the grain. It's just like a really like pretty special, driven type of kid. It's something that I care about very deeply.
Yeah, and you can see a direct line between you being like, you know what, I'm gonna get on this piece of wood that has wheels on it, and I'm gonna try to flip on it and do all this stuff. You can see a direct line to, okay, now I'm scaling the library, and I'm not scared.
Right. And at the time when I was scaling the library, when I got into all that, dropping out of college, the whole thing with the girl breaking up with me, like that was another thing is that I was like, fuck, I blew it. Like I got to be skating. And I got back on the board and I really, skateboarding's been a constant. Actually, like in the last week, I was out there like, really pushing myself and I learned a new trick. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I pulled off a trick for the first time in my life, like within 2 weeks or so of turning 46.
Yeah, I feel like so many people would mentally be like, oh no, skateboarding was something I did when I was young. And it's like, there's no reason to actually feel that way.
Right.
Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to go through some of the pictures that you sent us that we haven't talked about yet, because you had really good pictures, so I just want to make sure we talk about all of them. So let's talk about this one. We're clearly rocking a look here.
Yeah. This reminds me of another time, except it was my junior year. Same exact dynamic as the ripping out the tooth in 5th grade, but now it's 11th grade. It was the last class of the day. A hit of acid took about an hour to make you start tripping. As where you take it in about an hour. So I walked into the final class of the day, sat down next to the pretty girl, turned my head towards her and stuck out my tongue, and it had a hit of acid on my tongue. And she was just like, ooh, creepy, like uncomfortable, awkward, like you're fucking weird.
Okay, great. Now I'm trapped in class with this guy who's tripping balls.
Right. And then the idea was that when the class was over, I would now be tripping at school, but I could just like leave.
It is very funny because I feel like you can see in that picture, like, obviously you've got the long hair, you've got the necklace.
This is my LSD uniform.
I was gonna say, I feel like we can see a really big difference between the last picture we looked at, which is skateboard Steve-O, and now we're into drug Steve-O. And I think stylistically, you're definitely letting people know that that's where you're going.
Right. Things are not going well.
All right, here we go. Okay, so is this University of Miami?
This is University of Miami. That picture would have been taken by the girl who broke my heart, I believe.
Oh my God.
Maybe not. I don't know. But I spent more time at the pool working on that incredible tan than I did going to class.
I was going to say, I'm like, you're tan, you're fit, he's ready for college.
There was probably a class that I was supposed to be attending when that photo was taken, and I was not.
Okay, this is a Canadian passport, I think?
It is a Canadian passport, correct. Yeah, I have 3 valid passports to this day. That's about as long as my hair ever did get.
And at what point, what made you do the bleach? Because Eminem was not in the picture. So what brought you to the bleach?
At that point, I was, I just had the government test drugs on me for money, and this was one of my things that I did while I was homeless. I don't know, I was just like, yeah, I'm wild. Like, I did anything I could do just to seem, wild.
What drugs did they test on you?
It was called rack dopamine hydrochloride. The study was trying to get FDA approval for this drug to be administered to pigs and cows, so that the pigs and cows would have more muscle mass and less fat, so that the meat could appeal to a more health conscious consumer. Because in that scenario, people eat the meat, a trace amount of this drug would enter the human body. That required medical studies to determine how much of this drug the human body could withstand, or something like, and that made it one of the more risky, the more dangerous the medical study, the more it pays. And they fed me and gave me a bed to sleep in, and I left with $2,000.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get that calculation. So we're coming to the end of our episode. I usually like to end by just asking our guest, if you could talk to teen Steve-O today, what would you tell him? What advice, wisdom, anything?
I would say, I would want to be careful in talking to a teenage me about trying to mess with the space-time continuum.
That's true.
Be careful, like if it's not fucking. I don't want to like everything worked out. Like, I'm pretty happy with it, so I don't want to like get too preachy on me. But it would be really nice. Like it would just purely benefit to like take care of your teeth and gums, floss, smell the floss, make sure, because when people tell you have bad breath, that's what they mean. And so floss and fuck cigarettes and don't put down the skateboard, just skateboarding. You don't have to be competitive in the big picture of skateboarding. What you have to be is just got to improve yourself, only compete against you yesterday.
Okay, I love that. Only compete against you yesterday. That's fantastic. Now, I have one last thing that I want to show you.
Okay.
So the Roast of Your Teenage Self, it started as a live comedy show where I have people kind of show their pictures and roast themselves and all that stuff. I have a photo that I show at every show that I think sums up teen me. Here I am with my Jackass poster in my insane high school bedroom. You guys had the place of honor, though, with this poster.
That's great. Yeah.
I remember I got it for Christmas. My parents didn't really understand what it was, but but I got it anyway. And it's you guys alongside Pirates of the Caribbean, alongside Sid Vicious, Harry Potter, just all the icons of my childhood. Yeah.
Right on. Well, hey, I'm honored, and it's been a treat.
Yeah, it's been truly amazing to have you. And for everybody who's been listening at home, this has been the Roast of Your Teenage Self podcast.